Welcome everyone, we're at the Emirates Stadium, which is celebratory right now off the back of another Arsenal win, 2-1 against Chelsea. It's a 5-point gap at the top again, one game in hand. We end the weekend in a sense, Gary, where we started it. What about this game though? There was a whole lot of jeopardy around it.
Yeah, I mean look, it's a very good week for Arsenal. You think about where they were a week last Wednesday after the Wolves game, and there were big questions, and I think one of the toughest things in a title race is when you're actually asked to play second and your competitor, your main rival's playing first. And City have had that advantage in the last week where they played 2 games ahead of Arsenal. I don't know how many times that's going to happen. I actually think that, to be fair, look, it always happens, and to be fair, we're on TV, but it is a massive advantage to play first. So I don't know how many occasions that's going to happen before the end of the season, but I think there is something when it gets to the last 6 or 8 games where maybe they should play together or on the same day. I don't know how that can work, because obviously you want to try and get every single game on, but I do think it's a big advantage in Arsenal. Mikel Arteta before the game was asked by Patrick Davison whether it's an added pressure seeing your rivals win last night, and he said no, because we just need to do our job. That's the standard answer. It absolutely is a lot more difficult. You know, if Leeds get a goal last night in the 90th minute, Arsenal just lift themselves on a Saturday night and they've not even played. If City get over the line and win, you don't go down, you don't get down in the dumps or anything like that, but you just think, right, we definitely have to win tomorrow, you know what I mean? You've got no cushion, you've got no room for error. So, look, for them to respond like they have after that Wolves game and get the 2 wins, in difficult games, Tottenham, I know that Tottenham aren't playing well at the moment, but it's a North London derby and it should never be taken for granted. They had difficulties in that game in the first half where Tottenham got level. And then today, again, it was a scruffy game, but it doesn't matter. You're going to get moments like that. Mikel Arteta would want to see, I think, a bit more fluidity in his team, but Chelsea made it difficult for them. I thought Chelsea played well in the second half. I wanted to see more belief from Chelsea in the first half. We'll come on to them shortly. But for Arsenal, set pieces, those corners are they're a saviour, aren't they? I mean, they're a saviour in one hand because they are so good at them. They've mastered the art of set-piece delivery, of making the right runs, of confidence, of psychologically destroying the other teams before they even started. Almost teams are like sort of in panic mode. I felt sorry for Reece James, actually, specifically on corners, because he was given the task of blocking Gabriel, and I just think you're overcomplicating it. I know what they're trying to do with that. They're trying to get Reece James, who's quite stocky in build, to block him before he makes his run. But it becomes about a height thing in the end. And I just think that Reece James ordinarily would never pick up the best header of the ball in the opposition team. So why he's given that job, I don't know. Now, look, I remember many, many years ago playing football, I was once given the job of blocking Duncan Ferguson and blocking Les Ferdinand in games. They were 2 exceptional headers of the ball. And so I was given the job of wrestling them and fighting them and stopping them running, so that actually other players, Nemanja Vidic or one of the other centre-backs, could go and head the ball. It wasn't Nemanja Vidic, actually. It was probably in the Jaap Stam era or Gary Pallister era, but I was there to be sort of like stocky and sort of, if they were making a run from, say, the penalty spot, I was there to block. But after the first one, you could see that Reece James was struggling. So why don't you just put Chalobah onto Gabriel and just say, look, enough's enough. Let's not overcomplicate things. Let's not try and be clever. And that, to me, was a key aspect of the game. And Arsenal today, look, they've won, and that's all that matters. That is all that matters. And it's a tough game, and you're going to get games where you're not quite at your best. I still think that Mikel Arteta will want to see a bit more fluidity in open play and creating more chances. But I think they can really, to be fair, be quite happy tonight about where they are going into this sort of midweek game that they've got.
And around the whole wobble thing, which is actually now yesterday's news, last week's game at Tottenham, which was one thing, and this was a very different game today. It seems to me, you may or may not agree, that they have demonstrated actually quite a good degree of poise. It's like, they certainly the players, however nervous the crowd are, the players, to me, look a solid, coherent, with it bunch. Yeah, they are. I mean, look, it was a wobble, because I think if you just sort of add up, I think it was Forest, Liverpool, the defeat against Manchester United, and then the draw v Wolves. The draw v Wolves off the back of those sort of 3 in the period of like 4 or 5 games, that is a major wobble for a title
challenging team. So I don't think we're wrong to say it was a wobble and that, you're asking questions, but they've responded well. And you've got to make sure that when you're on a little run like that in a season like this, that you do come out of it. And it's very difficult when you're playing games every 3 days to maintain performance all the time. You just have to be physically strong. You have to be resolute. You have to be making sure that you win when you don't play well. And they've got that about them. It's a shock. I just heard a little bit of Saliba's interview on the pitch at the end of the game. And the way in which he talks about conceding that goal before half-time. He said, that's not good enough. That's not what we do. They really do value clean sheets. They value their defensive work. They're really sort of like quite strict on it. I thought in the first 10 minutes of the game, Arsenal adapted well when Chelsea looked like they had something going on with Palmer in that pocket. But then they pushed Gabriel or Saliba in. So Arteta works. Arteta, to be fair to him, he sees danger. They do respect the defensive side of the game a lot. It's one of their strongest aspects. And they'll be disappointed with the goal they conceded at Tottenham last week, the goal they conceded at Chelsea today, because it's caused them a little bit of pain. And I actually thought Chelsea were doing well in that first 15, 20 minutes of the second half. But they get in front. We'll come on to Chelsea and how they get in front in a minute, but they get in front and then they hang in there. And sort of at the end, it was a little bit scary. But this crowd that are going to be coming in here for the next 10 weeks, there's going to be a few more of those.
It's interesting you talk about game every 3 or 4 days. Obviously, they've just had a week off, but that's very rare. If they go all the way, they've got a favourable FA Cup draw at Mansfield. They've probably got a favourable Champions League draw against Bayer Leverkusen. If they keep going through the rest of the season, they're going to have more games which aren't Premier League games than are Premier League games. So, how do you deal with all that when probably in the psyche of the average Arsenal fan, winning the Premier League is number one? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. Look, because Mikel Arteta and this team need to win a trophy, they can't go and then just sort of, if they'd won loads of trophies in the last few years, you could definitely prioritise the Premier League. So if they'd won FA Cups, League Cups, won a Champions League, say, then you could say, right, okay, it's all in on the Premier League. But they're not in that position to be able to do that. And they have built a squad here where he's amassed a group of 22 players that you could have 2 different starting 11s if they were all fit. So that's why they've done that. They've got a great squad. And he's going to need to trust that squad. Bit of a worry that Declan Rice looked like he did something over in that far side and he came off early because he's the one player that you think they can't respond. But that's their fixture list there, by the way. March 14th, March 4th, March 14th, 15th, 22nd, and obviously there's the big break, and then they go 11th, 18th, 25th. Is this the?
That's just Premier League.
Is that just Premier League?
Yeah.
And then you've got all those sort of FA Cup, Champions League games, and Carabao Cup final in between that as well, which actually is listed there. But you look at those league games, Arsenal are in a great position. They've got that big game at the Etihad, but they've got lots happening before that. And I keep talking about that game. But look, it's been a good week for them. How he manages the squad whilst winning a trophy and making sure he wins this league. Because look, the Champions League, you can never just throw away the Champions League. And you're in a Carabao Cup final, so you have to play your best team in that. The Mansfield game's the one that they'll just completely change. He'll just have to risk, but that's a risk, that's a calculated risk. But this is the trophy they have to win. I think before the game, I don't know how many times we go over to that 2004. We go over to 2004 and say the last time Arsenal won the Premier League title was in 2004. And it's now 22 years. And I support a football club that went 26 years without winning it from sort of what it was, 1967, was it, to 1993? And you don't want that. That's too long for this football club to be. And they've got so close over this last 3 years. This is really the trophy that will transform this group of players and this manager. The Premier League title, it will transform them. It will be the one that people think, right, they are real. They've done it. So, and the Arsenal fans know that. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the run-in. It's close. They're up against Pep Guardiola, but you wouldn't want it any other way, would you? If you're going to win it, you'd want to go and beat the man that basically has always won it type thing. You want to make sure that everybody's there when you go and win it and you don't get it sort of handed to you as a gift. Not that they would turn that down, but you want to make sure you've come through it and you've withstood a title charge from Manchester City and you've been sort of in a neck and neck race and you've really sort of got that endurance and that mentality that you can look back upon and think, right, okay, we've done it, we are champions. So I think for me, it's an intriguing next 6 to 8 weeks. City are not going to make it easy for them, and last night they didn't have it easy themselves, but they got over the line.
Yeah, well, let's deal with City now then. We can come back to Chelsea and the Champions League positions. What did you think of City last night? Leeds gave them a terrific game.
I think Leeds is a tough. I mean, that was an awkward one for City, and I think that Pep Guardiola. There's a clip of Pep Guardiola at the end of the game where he's got that little grin on his face. He goes like that, little kiss to the fans, and then he goes like that, and you don't see too much emotion, but we have in the last couple of weeks, haven't we, seen emotion from Erling Haaland, from Pep Guardiola, where they know what's happening here. They know they're applying pressure to a team who haven't got a great deal of experience in this race. And they'll be sat there tonight, Manchester City, thinking, they'll just be in their roast dinner thinking a little bit, when Chelsea nearly score in the last minute, they'll just be thinking that might be something that would help them. But look, it's in both their hands, isn't it? I mean, that's
absolutely is,
simple as that. It's in both their hands. So, Manchester City's players have been there before. They won't shirk it. But yeah, there's an interesting game going on because obviously Arteta's worked with Pep Guardiola, so there's a respect there obviously as well. But Pep Guardiola won't want to get beaten by anybody, let alone someone who's been his disciple at one point. And City, I thought last night, they're not at the best. They're not convincing. I don't know how many times we have to say this. They're not what they were a few years ago. Leeds had a good 20-25 minute period where you just think they've got to score in that period. But then after that, City start to play. And Semenyo is a good signing, eh? He's a good signing. Gay and Semenyo, really good additions in that transfer window. And that could be the difference for City at the end. If City do win it, you'd be looking at that transfer window and thinking that's where they just made the difference.
Okay, so these Champions League places then behind the top two. I know you'll want to talk about Manchester United in a moment, but Chelsea are our immediate concern. And right now their concern is that they're the odd one out. They're 6th out of 5, as it were.
Yeah.
How are you reading that dynamic through Chelsea eyes in the first instance?
Do you know, I've never commentated on a team that make me feel so many different emotions during a game about what they are. You can watch them in a match and you can think they're naive. You can think they're too nice. You can think they're electric. You can think they're a great possession team. You can think, they've got a lot of talent. You can think so many different things about. You can think they're ill-disciplined. And they're all those things. Because in the first half I was watching them and thinking, come on. You're not making runs forward like it matters. Honestly, I think sometimes when I watch football players play, run like it's hurting you. You know what I mean? Run like it really matters. And when I watch Chelsea's players run forward in that first half, they're almost ambling forward. I think, no, that isn't going to get you in a game like this. That is not going to get you a victory. You have to really hurt. You have to run 99 times and not get it, thinking you're going to get it in that 100th time in these types of matches, making those runs in behind. Actually, the Chelsea corner that they got for the goal was when Neto makes a run across the line and makes the dart in, and it really makes a difference. I don't see enough of that. Runs that in behind without the ball, the ones that you're not going to get it, but your mate might get it, but you'll open space up for others. And they don't do enough of that at times in games, and they're too nice, and they're too possession-based, and they're too passive. And then I watch them in the second half, and I think the complete opposite of that. I think, this is dangerous. These are a team. You see them sort of getting on the half turn. You see James on that far side whipping it, and you see Hato making lots of runs forward down this left side. He was a lot more aggressive. You see Enzo Fernandez running forward with purpose alongside João Pedro, and you think, right, that's where you need to be, Enzo, in there. And there's so many times during matches with Chelsea, you flip from thinking they're miles away and they're naive and they're nice and they're academy team to thinking, right, okay, you get a goalkeeper, you get an experienced centre-back, you put an experienced centre-forward into this group, and you could be in business. Now, they've got to keep players fit. But if Chelsea kept Reece James fit and the centre-backs fit, but added they need a top-class goalkeeper and a top-class centre-back that's experienced. And they need a top-class centre-forward to accompany João Pedro and Delap, not to replace them or get rid of them. Have 3 strikers, and one of them is João Pedro, very good. One of them is Delap, young, got a lot to prove, but he's got potential. And then bring someone in, and look, that's difficult. That's difficult because I'm sort of imagining that you can just go and pick them off a shelf. They're not there, are they? But they need a centre forward of experience, and I'm not talking about experience like he's in 33, I'm talking like 27, 28, somebody at the back who's 26, 27, 28, who's got real presence and can bring that solidity for them, or they've got to emerge out of what the pack they've got, but I'm not quite sure, I can't work them out sometimes. And then the goalkeeper, they do, look, I'm going to talk about the goalkeeper. He invites problems, Robert Sanchez. Every time I watch him play, I have my heart in my mouth. And then obviously on the goal, he flaps at it. So for me, Chelsea are 3 players, and I've thought that for a couple of years, to be fair, that they need those sort of what would be centre forward, centre half, centre back, goalkeeper. And you think sometimes they're not far away. But then you can watch some other parts of the match and think they're miles away, and they've spent a fortune and they've wasted much of it. And it's weird watching them, and the discipline is a thing. I mean, do you say 8 sendings off or?
That was 9 today.
9. Yeah. 9 sendings off.
7 in the Premier League.
And for Joe, something, they're not like a team that bully others or sort of are aggressive, or it's just petulance, isn't it? And lack of thought, lack of intelligence, inexperience, whichever way you want to put it, dissent. Getting bookings for dissent, and then sort of like, over on that far side, Neto making that challenge. He knows that Martinelli's good one-on-one. He's just got to run back, almost match him and follow him and just let him sort of cross it or try and block the cross. He can't get involved in there and going to ground. So just stupidity. And I think Chelsea would have had a good chance in the last 15 minutes. So look, I've got many different thoughts about Chelsea. It's almost like a jumble sale of thoughts, really, because they make you feel like that in every single match and you can't work them out. I'm sure the manager's the same. He's just doing his interview here now, and I think in parts of games he'll be thinking, I'm proud of this group of players, and in other parts of games he'll be thinking, come on. And in other parts of games he'll be thinking they're naive. In other parts of games he'll be angry with them because they get sent off and they're ill-disciplined and they're costing them points. So all these different emotions. They've got an inexperienced manager as well. They've got an inexperienced team. So yeah, I think there is some experience needed in the club, in the dressing room. But they've got some players that make you think, oof, they can play. They can play. But they're up against it, aren't they? They have got a game against Manchester United in a couple of weeks, or a few weeks.
And before that, this week, Gary, they've got a game at Villa. And, who are the other, you might say, vulnerable one in that group? I think I said that, didn't I, on this podcast 3 or 4 weeks ago. I could sort of see this coming with Villa. They could get sort of pulled back into it. And they are getting pulled back into it. Interesting game midweek, Chelsea-Villa. Is it at Chelsea? Villa.
At Villa. Interesting. I mean, Chelsea are 6 points off it. If Villa beat them, they're 9. I don't think Chelsea will get beat midweek. I don't think they will. I think that defeat today, sounds mad this, will give them a bit of confidence going into Wednesday, because I think they've played quite well in parts of that game today, to be fair to them. I thought they were poor for the last half hour of the first half, and obviously they scored the goals before half-time, but I thought they were really quite flimsy in that period of the game. But the goal gave them a little bit of something, and probably give the manager a little bit of something to say at half-time to them, are you going to play? Sometimes, as a manager, are you going to play or not? Are you going to run forward? Are you going to commit in this game? Are you going to show a bit of belief? And that's all it needs sometimes. It's not tactical information that sometimes players need. It's a case of, Enzo, are you going to run forward? Hato, are you going to make sprints forward and go forward at left back? And Reece, are you going to get forward and put some crosses in? And Cole, are you going to get forward and get on the half? And he's almost asking the questions of them. Are you just going to let this game pass you by? Are you going to play in a football match and watch Arsenal just go and roll all over you and score from corners? So that's the type of thing that I think might not have been said like half-time. I might be well off it. But that's what I would have been saying it. Maybe that's why I'm not a coach anymore. But I feel like that's what needed to be said to them. Come on. And yeah. So for Chelsea, big game in midweek. Villa look like they're, United, I think, level with them now on 51 points, aren't they? Liverpool are strong. Chelsea have got a bit about them. Interesting what's going to happen in this next few weeks. I think United play Villa definitely in a couple of weeks. United play Chelsea, I think, a few weeks after that as well. So it's all going to happen. And United do look like they're in the box seat.
You watched them today. Watched them today. How were they?
I thought Crystal Palace did really well in the first half. And look, it's interesting, these matches. I'm sure Michael Carrick tonight will be really happy. The big difference with Michael in this last few weeks is that in these difficult matches, and I'm talking about the Fulham game where United have to score late on through Sesko, they have to score late on at West Ham to salvage a point, through Sesko. They have to score pretty late on against Everton in a difficult game where Everton had a mountain of corners with Sesko, and they've had to score today. You know, they've had a little bit of luck today with, I say a bit of luck, but a bit of good fortune, I would say, getting the penalty and then the sending off, which means that obviously in these matches, Michael Carrick has got Manchester United over the line. But there are still moments in these matches, these types of opponents, West Ham of this world, Fulham's, Crystal Palace's at home, Everton away, where United still struggle against a team that plays a little bit deeper, which means that Manchester United can't play fully on the counter-attack. And it's interesting against Everton, they actually scored an amazing goal on the counter-attack on Monday night. But Everton, to be fair, sat pretty much in that game. And United still find, this Manchester United still find it difficult against teams that play deeper, and it's a struggle. But they weren't getting over the line in these games under Ruben Amorim. They are getting over the line now. And I have to say that the goal from Sesko is an absolute beauty. The header is a brilliant header. I love headers anyway. You know, I think last week was my favourite ever goal was Cristiano Ronaldo's in Rome. But that was a proper header, that, from Sesko, and he's got his confidence. He started him today, which I think was always going to happen. And it's a big win. The controversial moment in the match was the sending off and the penalty. The penalty was on the edge, but you can see why that was given, because it was a little pull, but he sort of lets go and he sort of falls in. The sending off, I thought was harsh. I thought the sending off was harsh. We know that if you don't play the ball, that they can then say, they looked at it 5 or 6 times. I was in the truck behind watching it over in the compound over there. I'd have been really annoyed if it was my team and you got a man sent off for that. I think I've been probably a little bit annoyed about the penalty. So a little bit of a break in that moment for Manchester United, and Michael Carrick takes that break. But yeah, tonight, Michael Carrick, he'll be fully focused, long way to go, really proud of his team getting over the line, but he'll understand that there are sort of issues that he'll be asking the question, how do I get them better? How do I get them better against these types of awkward opponents that just sit back against us a little bit more? How do I get us to... I mean, so they were amazing against Arsenal and Manchester City and against Tottenham. You think, whoa, that's an incredible performance. But most of it can be quite reactive to what City do. You can play on the counter-attack. And then Burmo, Cunha, Bruno, Mount, Sesko, Ahmad, they're amazing on the counter-attack. They're absolutely brilliant. How can we get to a point whereby we can dominate teams, sustain attacks in the final third, keep patience but with speed of play and tempo? I mentioned that earlier in this game today. The best teams are able to keep patient but look like they're playing quickly. You know, really sort of pushing it and shifting it quickly. And you think about the great Barcelona team, they kept it like you wouldn't believe, but they used to shift it all the time and pop it in and about each other, and you'd be like, almost like, how do they get to that? How did Manchester United get to that? And it's obviously very early on in Michael Carrick's days, but that's what he'll be thinking. Him, Steve Holland will be sat there looking at these 4 matches. Everton away, West Ham away, Fulham at home, Crystal Palace at home, and thinking, they've just gone our way, those games. Whether it's for a win or for a draw. They've just gone our way. They've just flipped our way. But it wouldn't take much for them to flip the other way. So see the danger of that and think, how can we get better at that? Because it is something that Ruben Amorim struggled with. It's something that Erik ten Hag struggled with. It's something that Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer struggled with, where Manchester United won games quite well on the counter-attack, where they had less possession. But when they were actually dominant of the game in terms of 60% possession, or a team just sat off against them, how do we get good at that again? So you can play in different ways. Yeah, Manchester United are great on the counter-attack. They can compete. They can play without the ball. But actually, in a game whereby a team sits off against them, they can actually dominate possession and they can go and win games that way as well, which they are doing. But these games are probably 55-45 type victories. And that'll be the one thing that Michael takes from it. For Sesko, the confidence, the goals, the finishes, by the way, that he's put in. I mean, the Fulham, the West Ham, the Everton, the goals, they're 4 brilliant goals, by the way. And they're all different. They're all very different goals. One across the near post, one's a header, one's a counter-attack with a sort of side finish at the end. And then the Fulham one's the one on the turn, where he's got it into his feet and he's had to turn. So he's definitely improved enormously. Michael Carrick never picked him in the team, by the way, until today. That's the first time Michael Carrick has started him. So he's obviously had doubts about him in terms of, not being right or not being quite there. But what he seems to have done in the 4 or 5 weeks whilst having him sub is bring him on. And then he had that angry celebration, didn't he, against Everton? That was a celebration of a guy who said, "You better play me, by the way, now." And he has done. And that header today is really good. It's a proper header, that. So I think now he's working Sesko into form. Now, that's a game changer for United, because they cannot have another centre forward come into the club and failing. They just can't. They can't keep bringing players to the club. And there are signs now with Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko. Mbeumo and Cunha look like United players, and they have done from the beginning. Just in terms of their confidence, their arrogance, their power, their strength, their ability to sort of always want the ball. Bruno obviously is a United player. But now if Sesko can grow and he looks physically better, he looks quicker, that is a big, big thing. If Carrick can get the best out of him, that means that you're basically in a situation whereby in the summer you can concentrate on other positions. The central midfield, Casemiro leaving. You can concentrate maybe on a full-back and a centre-back, because they do have problems in those positions still that need dealing with. But maybe now you just leave the forwards. You've got Bruno, you've got Mount, you've got Sesko, you've got Mbeumo, you've got Ahmad, you've got Cunha. Right, that's dealt with. They will cause problems against any team. Right, let's deal with the midfield. Let's deal with the sort of full-back or centre-back position. So I think Manchester United, what Michael's done in this last 5 or 6 weeks is, if you valued that squad under Ruben Amorim, he's doubled and tripled the value of that squad on paper. He's made players that you think, I'm not sure he's going to do it. I'm not sure he's, Kobbie Mainoo, is he going to play football again? All of a sudden, Kobbie Mainoo is a 50, 60 million pound midfield player. Sesko is a 70 million pound forward all of a sudden. You're looking at people and thinking, actually, there's value there again. And that'll be something that obviously the owners will be happy about, because they're looking at sort of the money that they've spent over the last 5-10 years, and there's been so much wasted, it's untrue. But has there so much wasted been because of the performances? Is it because of the culture? Is it because of they're not bad players, these lads? When they sign, you're quite excited about seeing them. So, yeah, I think it's a complete transformation. And, yeah, work to do. I still think there are danger signs, because, like I say, the 3 or 4 of those games that I've mentioned, they could have flipped the other way. And if Manchester United were to lose 2, and all of a sudden Chelsea win 2, and Liverpool do, and Villa win a game, all of a sudden United back down. You've got to retain a little bit of composure, because there's been too many false dawns. But it's looking really good at the moment, and just a little bit of luck and good fortunes coming Michael's way as well, which is always helpful.
So just to finish in that context there with a little bit of a sort of mischievous pub question, of all the fixtures upcoming that you didn't mention, one that remains is Man United-Liverpool, or Liverpool-Man United. There's one of those still to come.
Do we still have to play them?
You do. And so my mischievous question is...
Where's that at?
That'll be at
Old Trafford. Yeah, it's Old Trafford.
Third place. Who's? If you had to pick between United and Liverpool to finish third, who would you?
United have got difficult games, but they've got a free programme. They've got the momentum. They look dangerous. I actually think against the good teams, they're very dangerous on the counter-attack with Ahmad, Sesko, Mbeumo, Cunha, Bruno. So I actually think those games suit them. I think United will definitely finish third. But I'll probably sat here in 3 weeks on the Gary Neville podcast, which I said wasn't very good before, which is a bit in the game. No, I think United will finish third. And I can't believe I'm saying that from where we were 6 weeks ago. But I just think they've got no distractions. They've got something good going. The momentum's with them. All the teams have got difficult games. They've all got difficult games. They've all got a challenge in front of them. I think United finish third. I think Liverpool finish fourth. And I think Chelsea will finish fifth. I hope Villa finish in the top 5. I really do. And look, I've said before, their manager is an experienced, wise guy. And if they get some players back, but the midfield players being injured have cost them a bit in the last few weeks. And I just feel like it'll be Chelsea, Manchester United and Liverpool. The only doubt will be Chelsea or Villa. Chelsea or Villa for fifth is my view. I think it's United, Liverpool, Chelsea or Villa.
Grand.
What do you think, Peter?
Oh, gosh. I'm not here to have an opinion, Gary.
You could have an opinion, though,
if
Peter.
there's a fence, I'll sit on it. But I am actually, despite myself, inclined to agree with you about. I'm sad about Villa.
Yeah, I am a little.
And listen, I am absolutely going to sit on the fence of Manchester United, Liverpool, which clearly you can't, but I can because I don't want to get involved in that row.
Yeah.
But yeah, reluctantly, I have to say, it was obviously a horrible Friday night for them, wasn't it, at Wolves? And
Yeah.
and they've had their midfield ripped out, which is terrible bad luck.
Yeah, and
And they want to win the Europa League, by the way, which is
Yeah.
a big deal for them.
Yeah, and their manager loves winning the Europa League. Yeah, that getting injuries like they have in midfield has killed them a lot. And yeah, you know, Michael Carrick's had Harry Maguire come back. He obviously had Alessandro Martinez come back for a few games. He had Mbermo and Ahmad come back from AFCON. So he's had some good fortune in terms of players coming back for him. And Unai Emery has lost players. And look, injuries will be a big factor. The other competitions will be a big factor. But at the moment, they're in danger. They're vulnerable, Villa, in terms of the Champions League places.
Yeah.
Thank
Lovely
you.
stuff, Gary.
Thanks,
Thank you
Peter.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Take care.